Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of It's a Film Thing, the UWI.Film podcast.
I'm Corneal and he's Jonathan, and today we'll be reviewing Bazodee.
Let me see you make your body move. You make me whistle 'cause you're something good. Oh, you make my body feel rude. Whining like a champion. I love that song.
Wow,
Why is that funny?
because I wrote it.
Friends, welcome to our famous Trinidadian hospitality.
Tonight is gonna be amazing.
For Anita, everything was perfectly planned.
You have the perfect engagement party, perfect ring. I'm so jealous of you.
The right man,
I don't care what we do, as long as we're together.
the right future.
Who gets married in a palace?
A princess.
But on an island where every day brings new possibilities,
How did you find me?
Fate.
life has other plans.
That one guy's doing all the music. He better be good.
Here we go.
You can get lost in music. The whole world is black and white. And then boom, everything's in color. It makes me feel
Bazodee.
Son, you need to do a better job looking after your bride.
800,000 women on this island. And you had to choose the one with the biggest rock on her finger.
Anita, thinking about you whole day.
in what world can you and I ever be together?
I don't think you understand what you're doing. You don't have to marry Barrett.
You want me to fail, Papa?
No. Go and do something for yourself now.
Ready to defend in the toughest time.
This is madness.
This is carnival. When I need a friend, I depend on you.
This is my last chance. Tonight is about us.
You give me a reason to jump for joy. You give me a reason to live. You give me the vibe and keep me alive. Make everything right. Yeah. That's Bazodee.
So, do you even know what Bazodee means?
No.
Well, apparently I've learned that Bazodee means being head over heels for someone or something. So, have you ever experienced Bazodee before?
No.
Yeah, I don't think I've
Nah.
never even heard about it before.
No, that's an actual word? That would catch me there.
Well, I think it's not for our generation. Probably the old heads will know, but
Oh, great. No, again, class in the comments. Great. Thanks for that.
probably exposing my age here, but yeah.
Okay, so a little bit about Bazodee. It was released in 2015. Bazodee tells the story of two star-crossed lovers from like different places in life. Anita, who's a wealthy young woman engaged to the son of her father's friend. Then there's Lee, a struggling musician who's trying to restart his career. It's set in Trinidad and Tobago, of course, and their chance meeting at Carnival turns into a passionate love affair, leaving Anita torn between her duty to her family and her love for Lee. Okay, so to start things off, I think we should talk about what we initially thought of the film by rating it on a scale of 1 to 10. Ready? Okay. 3, 2, 1. 3 out of 10.
5.
Okay.
So, what was your initial thoughts before going into the film?
Before going into the film, I remember when the film first came out back in 2015. I remember seeing all of the advertising and the marketing for it, and I remember thinking that looks cool because even back then I was like interested in local films, local products coming from here. But I didn't see it in theaters. I didn't get the time to go see it. So also I was just starting like secondary school. I was in like Form 1.
Yeah, I was a Form 1 too.
Yeah, I was stupid, so yeah. Didn't really go see it in
I
cinemas.
wouldn't say that. Well, me personally, I was like a Marshall fangirl, so when I first heard about, like growing up, all I used to listen to was soca until I was exposed to the world. So
Globalization.
yeah, globalization. So I was actually excited about it, but I just never gotten the chance to actually go and see it in the cinemas, and I kind of forgot about it until I came here. So yeah.
All right. So then, now that you've seen the film, what are your thoughts on how it looked, like it cinematography wise?
I mean, it's not too bad. is not my cup of tea, but I can't really specify what really is my cup of tea. More with films is what speaks to me, but I would say that it was pretty sound.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. For me, in terms of cinematography, trying to figure out technically how it works, I think it's competent very well. It's a very good-looking film.
Yeah.
But I feel like there were a few missed opportunities in the visual storytelling. In terms of color, I think, well, it is a vibrant film. I do think some scenes looked, in terms of color grading, some scenes looked a bit more flat. And that kind of took me out. And just like the composition wasn't, it weren't really like any creative framing or composition that I saw.
Yeah, I think it was flat in regards to like it didn't really have much focal depth or stuff like that. Yeah, but I also believe that like for the lighting, I didn't really agree with the lighting 100%. It was good for specific scenes, for like for example the carnival scenes or like the night scenes. The lighting was pretty good. I think that gets a pretty good representation of our skin tones, but for other scenes like the one with the office where the brother-in-law came in and was trying to scheme and plot against them, that one, I find the lighting was a little too harsh on their skin tone. It wasn't really too much complimenting.
Yeah. I have the same opinion about the editing, where it was competent, I think it works well, but there's nothing about it that really stood out to me, which is fine. Though. It works and it does what it's supposed to do. It doesn't really take you out of it. Except towards the ending, at the final like dance number, there was a problem with the editing where they reused shots of Anita, and that took me out of it. But you know, sometimes that's just how things work sometimes.
So how you feel about the pacing?
Pacing wise, I think it was solid overall. Some scenes went a bit too fast, but overall I think it flowed naturally. I wasn't completely lost or anything.
Me personally, I was lost a little bit, but it was passable. Not in a bad way, it's just that certain things is like, that is more towards the plot and the storyline.
Yeah.
I find they glanced over a lot of scenes and a lot of character development that they could have spent a little more time developing.
Yeah, I really agree with you there on that point.
Yeah. So being that Bazodee is considered a romance musical, what do you think about the music?
Well, I think the music's great overall in terms of the songs. I mean, it's Marshall. It's great. The tracks are great. My favorite is I Forget. I've always I really like that track.
Whining like a junkie.
Not that one. They use that one a lot though. In terms of it being a musical, that's where my issue lies, because I don't think it really fits into the musical genre as I understand it. Because when I think of a musical, I would think of something like High School Musical.
So like people actually performing and singing along?
Yeah, like that. Here, the way the music is used in the film, a lot of the music, it flips back and forth between being diegetic and non-diegetic, whether or not the characters actually hear and interact with it, or whether or not it's spontaneous. So it kind of creates this weird tone of it being like half and half of it being a musical and a film that just has a heavy emphasis on music. Because there's a distinct difference between those two things.
I mean, I don't know if I would consider it a musical either, because from my belief, I think is really in studio music that they just implemented into the film. So I don't really think that they actually performed the music. It's more like they were just lip syncing.
They were just lip syncing instead of fully performing until the end. The end is where it felt like an actual musical with them dancing and
that
singing.
had a proper sequence.
Yeah, and choreographed movements. And that worked as an ending, but it felt like it came out of nowhere.
I can see that. The real question is, do you think Bazodee is a major marketing scheme for Marshall?
It's a 50-50 thing. On one hand, yes, absolutely it was a marketing scheme to promote his music and, get more, spread the word and whatnot. It was a marketing scheme. But on the other hand, I can't really speak for the man, but the way I interpret it is that I think it was a genuine attempt on Marshall's part to actually try something new, go into a new creative field and experiment with filmmaking and acting. And that's something that we as artists should really value and do more of. I think it's very important for us to try and diversify ourselves in different areas of creativity and art, try different things, because that not only helps us become better artists, becoming more experienced and trying out different things, helps improve the main thing that we focus on. I think it's good for people, for us as people to become more well-rounded, more developed.
So do you think it was well received locally?
I think in terms of it being locally, I can't say for sure because that's part of the problem. It was marketed a lot. I
Yeah.
didn't hear about it back then, like so much. Even though I was still I was young and still kind of unplugged from a lot of things. But I didn't really hear. I haven't really heard too many people, at least in my circle, discuss it. But from what I've gathered, I've heard people just from traveling abroad. A lot of people in the, I guess you could say the diaspora. Like when I traveled to places like Canada, even when I was in places like Miami, hearing Trinis who live there, they talked about the film, they saw it, and they said that they liked it because
Yeah.
the film did get a U.S. release. So, yeah, I think at least in that side, it was well received.
So, as Trinidadians watching this supposedly Caribbean-based film, what are your thoughts on the overall aesthetics?
The overall aesthetics of the film, I'd say that they're pretty. It's kind of hard to say there because it is spot on. It is Caribbean, but almost stereotypically so. Because when we were both watching the film together, and like soon as the first frame of the film, it was a shot of a beach, and we both instantly were like,
Yeah,
there
the
it is.
stereotypical
It's a
beach
shot of a
scene,
beach.
yeah.
There it is. And that in of itself is kind of complicated because in one part we're an island. That's literally what we are. But on the other part, it's like that's not all we are, and you constantly see it again and again. But because we know that it's from a local creator, it doesn't feel as cynical as usual. It feels a bit more earnest. But on the other hand, you also know that it's going for a wider audience. So it's this kind of weird mix in my head where it's like it is something that feels authentic, but on the other hand, it feels like it was made for an audience to yeah, this is the Caribbean, all right? This is what we're like. This is absolutely what it's like all the time. Nothing else happens here whatsoever.
I mean, I could see that, yes. Like, but the locations they choose for this, I could see what you're trying to say there. So, like, yeah, the beach scenes, like we call it the overview thing by on the Lady Young.
Yeah, you mean the overhead shot there?
Yeah. The lookout. Yeah, but the lookout. And then certain shots are like Curaçao and certain local places in Port of Spain. Then we saw Pigeon Point and other places in Tobago as well. So I think they was trying to show what people would stereotypically deem, like you would know for sure this is Trinidad.
Yeah.
Like this is not no other Caribbean country. This is Trinidad specifically.
Yeah, it's Trinidad and Tobago. It's us. This is where it's coming from. We're the ones who are making it.
Even like with the dialogue, like certain things I didn't understand. Once again, I believe that it's because we're not from that generation. Like I still don't understand that passion fruit thing the mother was talking about.
Neither do I.
Yeah, what she mean by that? Like, we don't need the passion fruit again. What passion fruit?
I don't want to think about what that means any deeper, but.
But no, but like even the dialogue, I believe like the mother specifically, you could tell that she's a stereotypical Trinidadian mother.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. And the things they were talking about too, you could see that they was trying to reference like, yeah, this is a Trinidadian setting, we're going to a carnival party, we're going to a fete, we're having a wedding, those kind of stereotypical topics that you would see here, especially.
Yeah. Something that kind of irked me about the film though was, I wouldn't say its large connection to Britain. I feel like that's kind of a tricky thing there because of the main character's love interest comes from London.
Yeah.
It does kind of feel like I feel like it's something like the film is kind of unconsciously commentating on. It's not something that it's saying directly textually, but it's just kind of there. Anytime you bring in any kind of relation between characters who are from London, anytime there's a relation between Trinidad or any Caribbean island and London in any film, that's the underlying theme of colonialism. It's always gonna be there. Like you can't. It's the elephant in the room every time you talk about it, whether it's present or not. It's always in the back of your head. It's like, oh.
Okay. So do you think that is why they choose to portray those who came from London in a kind of higher light in comparison to Lee, who is from Trinidad? Like, for example, in the airport scene, like why they had him on the ground playing on his instrument, and while the other guys were sitting on the benches.
Yeah, they're definitely trying to make a distinct difference between Lee and the main love interest from Britain. But that I don't think that you can look at it that way, yes. That's definitely an interpretation of it being like, you guys from London, they are rich in the film, they're a very wealthy family, and Lee just came from like barely
Wherever he
making
was,
it in
yeah.
London, or so wherever he was.
Wherever he was. I mean, apparently he was, you know, doing some gigs and stuff, but he wasn't as, he had the aspirations to go there and be this big musician, but he unfortunately didn't make it, so he was doing smaller gigs, and that's why he resorted to come back to Trinidad, and he kind of was disheartened about the whole experience. He gave up on music. So how you feel about that storyline?
Okay, now we're getting into a bit of a part of the film that kind of bothered me the most, because I feel like the characters in the film and the way they developed wasn't that particularly strong. While I do think they were like authentic representations of Caribbean people as characters, I personally just didn't find them all that interesting, because Lee's story, it was about him like trying to restart his passion in music, trying to find that artistic side of himself again after like failure, which as an artist that is very true to form. After failing multiple times, trying your best and still getting nothing in return, that can be soul crushing. It can be crushing. But I feel like they didn't execute it very well, because from the way it's edited, from the way it's shown, Lee comes back. He says, he talks to his friend, he's like, it didn't work out in London.
Yeah, he
failed,
want to start over. He wants to go
over.
into construction and stuff like that.
Yeah, but then he says all out of nowhere, actually, I want to get back into it. We don't actually see the moment that sparks him to get back into music.
That's the one thing that I didn't understand as well, is like, he kept saying that Anita was the reason why he got back into music, but it didn't have any direct connotation.
There's no direct correlation, because like when the scene where they first meet, where he's strumming the guitar in the airport and she's walks up and starts singing the song that he was singing. That part, he was already like clearly trying to get back into music. He's already attuned with it. He was playing his guitar, trying to get back in tune with it. So it seems like he came to that decision on the flight back, which makes sense. Sometimes you make a decision, you think about it a little bit, and it's like, oh, you know what? I changed my mind. But in a film, we should see that. We should see that inciting incident, or they should write it in such a way that he was just completely tired. Maybe he was just bored. Maybe that was something that could have been directed a bit better. Maybe he was supposed to be playing the guitar boredly.
Ukulele.
Ukulele. Supposed to be playing it bored, playing it with disinterest just to pass the time. And maybe Anita comes up to him, and that conversation really sparks that desire to play music again. That didn't really come across. That was the intention.
My major problem is Anita came down later on. Like, I could see that with how they could have potentially tied it with the fact that he saw the advertisement for the party that they were seeking musicians, and he didn't know Anita was going to be the main.
She was the one. She was the one getting married. The one who was getting married.
The bride to be.
The bride.
Yeah, but he didn't know that Anita would have been the bride to be. So I feel that is where they really was trying to connect it, but it wasn't too clear. And I believe that if they spent more time crafting out the story, it would have made more sense.
Yeah, because I think ultimately my core issue with the film and why the story just doesn't work for me, because I just don't think it's an effective romance, unfortunately. And I feel like it also kind of connects back to a poor idea of our romance and Caribbean romance, where the way that the film portrays it, and it's a combination of multiple factors. It's the writing and it's the choices of songs as well, because the music is great, but as we've been kind of alluding towards, it's all about whining. So it doesn't feel genuinely romantic. The way the film presents it, it mostly just feels like it's a physical affair between the two, not them actually falling in love. Yeah, because that's how it feels. Like, I'm watching the film, I'm seeing her, like, you know, talk all of their conversations, and the first time that they kiss is when they were trying to get two of her family members, not her two of her family members, her friend and another family member together.
Well, I think it's her cousin, and then it was her fiance,
the
cousin
groom's,
as well,
the groom's cousin, trying to get those two together. That first kiss came out of nowhere. That was genuinely, and that's not a good sign, where in the romance you should almost be anticipating the first kiss. When that happens, I was like, excuse me, you are engaged, madam. It was nuts.
Yeah, it just happened, and it didn't really have a reason, as it's just like we saw the cousins getting along and then bam, they kiss, and I was just like, why?
Where did that come from?
Yeah, where did that come from?
And again, the section where she sneaks off to go to carnival, to go to Juve, and that scene, it works. Like, it looks great. It's a great looking scene, but then it just feels strange because not only has their dialogue, not only is their connection felt mostly physical, like they don't have too much chemistry outside of that. It just, in a way, you kind of feel bad for the groom because he's not presented as like a terrible person. He's just like kind of a rich airhead, and that's not, you can't blame him for being that.
I wouldn't say he's a rich airhead. He's just a gentleman. Like, you know, he wanted to wait. He didn't want to push her too much.
Yeah, well, he is a gentleman, but besides that, he in other scenes he came across as kind of dumb to me. But that's neither here nor there. But
I would make a statement.
But yeah, back to my point where I feel like that kind of portrays a poor idea of Caribbean romance in a way where I feel like as a society we have a really hard time being genuine. We have a hard time just being open and showing affection to one another. Like a lot of times, like even if it's just like, even when it comes to things like being romantic or like platonic friendship, even platonic friendship, people are like, why are you acting so, that's just your friend? It's like, we have a hard time when it comes to like expressing things to each other. So I feel like with the way that the film showed it, it kind of reflected poorly on that idea of romance, where it did just kind of feel mostly like a physical affair rather than her realizing that she is falling in love with somebody else. I didn't fully get what she saw in him and what she didn't see in her fiancé.
Yeah.
So it just kind of felt weird to me. So it just kind of resulted in it feeling like a Lifetime movie my mom would watch.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. I believe this could 100% be on Lifetime. This would be 100%, we call it a B movie.
I guess you could say that. I feel like B movies is too harsh a term. I feel like that's too harsh of a term for it because there was a genuine like passion behind it. I just feel like they kind of fumbled in the execution of that.
So what would you do if you were the director in that case?
If I was the director, my concerns wouldn't necessarily be directing, it would be writing. I would see like the structure of the film needs to be seriously reorganized. You need to show, I think there needs to be a greater sense of conflict because firstly, the current antagonist in the film he's not great. When you see an antagonist in the film, you should either, and especially in a story like this, you should either be like, oh gosh, not this guy again, not be like, oh gosh, not he again. Those are two very different reactions. It's the same thing, but it's not really. So you need to change. There needs to be a bit more conflict in the story, whether in like the fiance side particularly. Either you need to show him as a character who is losing interest himself, or you need to give him antagonistic qualities as well. Maybe he's only marrying her for the family. Maybe you need to make him less of a good guy, which sounds bad, but it makes one more interesting story.
Well, I believe the story that I was trying to tell was that the brother was in love with her, but she ended up with the other one.
Yeah, the other one, but the
so the jealousy there, basically.
The jealousy that you can play upon that jealousy, and the way they did with the current antagonist of the film, he was jealous, but it was mainly through his. You didn't really get that sense of pettiness. You didn't get a sense he was actually hurt from that. Mostly, he just seems like a greedy businessman trying to take their money for no reason. I mean,
despite that one bar scene when he told the
bartender. Besides the one bar scene where he puts his phone in a blender.
I thought that was your favorite sequence.
Actually, no, that was my favorite sequence in the film. Now, thank you for reminding me of it because that was the most creatively shot sequence of the film, where he just got absolutely wasted, and I was like, just make a drink out of this. Puts his phone in the blender and just.
I mean, it showed the irony in the whole situation.
Yeah. I just think it's funny, to be honest. Like, the actor did a good job. Everyone did a good job in that. I just think it's hilarious. But yeah, the way I would. Yeah, in terms of improving it, I think you would show Lee's conflict with his passion for music and trying to make that career. show a bit more of his inciting instinct to try and like make that decision, have that be a bit more personal to him. I think he'd introduce the concept of his grandmother being like extremely influential to his life a bit earlier on, and her really like pushing him forward. If in a perfect world she had been a more consistent character.
Yeah, I
think
believe so.
Yeah, full character there. And in terms of Anita's side, I think she should just be a bit more. I think she should be a bit more fleshed out as well. I feel like a lot of the characters just kind of felt underbaked, like half cooked. They could have been more fleshed out, more time given on them as individuals before moving into the romance. What about you? What do you think? What would you have done as a director?
I would agree, actually. I believe that we need a little more character development. So basically everything you just said, you just ripped it out of my head.
So what do you think Bazodee could have learned from a different Caribbean romance film?
Well, for example, from what we learned in cinema, Caribbean Cinema 1 with Ava and Gabriel, that is more like a authentic love story that I feel is lacking in Bazodee.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that point too. Their connection did feel a lot more genuine, authentic. It was sad what happened, but it did feel more, it felt more authentic, like you said, yeah. I just feel like, in terms of the way, I think it was a more genuine film there. I think Ava and Gabrielle was a more authentic representation of a better Caribbean romance.
How you felt about the music and the lack of romantic music in the film? You believe that even though soca have this connotation to being like only party music, you go and wine, do you believe we should have used a little more romantic music?
We definitely should have. That plays into my larger problem with the film. We really could have used like different types of like more romantic soca songs. They exist. It's just that the song choices did not fit at all. It really did create that kind of clashing tone of it, again, feeling more like a physical affair rather than a true love story. We really should have gone with different song choices, using more romantic soca songs. That would have significantly benefited the film. So, to wrap things up a bit, what would be your final words on Bazodee?
My final words would be, it's a good film. I just wish that they focus a little more on the character development, spent more time on the script, and yeah.
For me, I would say that the film works. It's a competent film, but I think I was a bit disappointed by it and the story and the characters. Because for me, that's a big thing with film, because writing is something I'm trying to specialize in. That's something I always pay attention to, and the film did kind of let me down in that regard, sadly. But overall, I think it's a very solid film.
Alright guys, so that was our review of Bazodee. Let us know how you feel about the movie in the comments below. It's a film thing with your girl Cornel and Jonathan, and bye.
See you next time.